The old man's smile was the sunniest in Naples. It began with a merry twinkle in his eyes and ran down his cheeks in ripples, softening the wrinkles and irradiating his swart face as apple blossoms light up an orchard. This sunny smile was an outward expression of a cheery philosophy born of varied fortunes. In his youth, the old man had sung in the chorus of an opera company, and he had looked back through the 40 intervening years with pleasure to the night when he had been permitted to sing solo. But disease had injured the delicate music box in his throat, and his hopes of becoming a famous tenor were crushed. Then he enlisted and fought with the Garibaldi and left a leg on the battlefield. On his 60th birthday, he stood in the shadow of an ilex tree in the city of Naples, the possessor of a long gray beard and a wooden leg and a barrel organ. The organ was a beautiful instrument, rich in tone and ornamented with gilding. When the old man pulled aside the red silken curtain which hung on a brass rod in front of the organ, he displayed to the delightful eyes of children a number of quaint little wooden figures which danced and curtsied in the grace of courtiers. When he turned the handle of the organ, out came the Miserere song of La Trovatore, followed by the Chacun Hilarity Eroe a More, the plaintive sweetness of Anne Laure, the inspiring strains of the Watch of the Rhine, the warlike measures of the Rule Britannia, and last, and the most cosmopolitan of airs, Home Sweet Home. But the wonderful thing about the organ was the Tremolo Stop, which was a mechanical contrivance as the old man's invention. It was used only in connection with the song of home, and when he touched this stop, it imparted tremulous, wavering movement to the music. The old man found the Tremolo Stop to be very profitable because it made travelers feel homesick, and so the home song brought him more pennies than all the other tunes in his organ. But as the summer wore away and the travelers became few in Naples, the sunlight in his smile faded and left an anxious look in the old man's face, for he had been carefully saving his pennies toward opening a cafe. He reasoned that it would be easy to dish out macaroni when he could no longer carry around a heavy organ. One day, two friends of his youth who had just returned from America with what his estimation were snug fortunes met him. These friends were bootblacks. They were attracted by the Tremolo Stop, and knowing that Americans were always in search of a novelty, they advised the old man to go to America and assured him that he could return within a year with enough money to open a cafe. The old man listened eagerly to the advice of his friends, but he hesitated about leaving his native land. Besides, he was growing old, and all he desired was rest and comfort. But there was no prospect of realizing his hope in Italy, and so, after counting his money carefully and finding that he had a little more than enough to pay for his passage, he resolved to go to America. Landed at the castle garden, he had disappointed that his service of Garibaldi did not bring him a patriot's welcome among his countrymen. His success with his organ, however, was even greater than he had been led to expect. The native dignity of the old man, his infecting smile in which, as his fortunes rose, the sunlight had returned, and the Tremolo Stop attracted attention, and the pennies came to him as easily as oats run out of a bin. The aptness with which the puppet who held out the little brass plate discriminated between pennies and pieces of coal was marvelous to the children, and their trials of which working were profitable to the old man. He frequented Mulberry Street because there were so many children there. Once a tall, handsome man put a big silver dollar in the plate of the mannequin, who was so surprised at the magnitude of the gift that he could neither reject nor dump it in the box. The old man hoarded his money with jealous care, looking forward to the return to his sunny land. But the autumn passed away, and the weather grew cold. The children were kept indoors now. Although he could see their noses flattened against the window panes, he missed their pennies. To buy coal and wood, he had to spend the money he had laid away. Besides, the gilding upon the organ had become tarnished, and the red silken curtains was faded and torn. The funny little figures refused to dance and curtsy, and their old-time ease and the tremolo stop failed to impart melancholy sweetness to the home song. On bitter days, the cold wind stole through his thin clothing and his teeth chattered. Rough policemen hustled him from the sidewalk. The boys threw snowballs at him. He lost his pennies in the snow, and the bleak winter wind froze his cheery smile into a look of despair. When he climbed the 6 flights of stairs leading to his room at the top of a big tenement, the cisterns of his heart began to leak as he saw the vision of his cherished cafe fading away. One morning, he could not get out of bed. Hunger and fear and disappointment had made him delirious. The kindly rays of the sun came in the window and did what they could to cheer him, but the grim fellow was buffeting him, and fever was drinking his blood. He raved in the night about his youth and the solo he had sung at the opera. He saw in his delirium the flaring camp fires of his early days and raised his feeble hands to catch the gleaming dark lanterns of the fireflies which seemed dancing over his bed. On the evening of the 3rd day, the grim fellow relaxed his clutch about the man's throat. He breathed easier and awoke out of his delirium. Reaching his hand out from under the bedclothes with trembling fingers, he seized the handle of the organ. As he turned it there and faltered out the broken and disjointed, I have sighed to rest me deep in the quiet grave. Then the rollicking revelry of Roy O'More seemed to people in the room with the Irish lovers. He desired to reach the song of home quickened his waning strength as he conjured up the footfalls of An Loré. Again he heard the blare of trumpets and the rattle of drums as he feebly ground out the watch of the Rhine and Rule Britannia. When he reached the home song, his strength was almost gone. The plaintive tremor which had been lent to the tune in the olden days by the Tremolo Stop was now imparted by his shaky hand. Slowly and feebly the song came out, but a shadow of its former self, like the emaciated player, fluttered in failing cadences through pleasures and palaces and stopped. The old man had gone to the sunny land. The next morning the coroner came, loosened the death grasp. He turned the handle of the organ, and the end of the song came out into the room. No place like home. This has been Tremolo Stop by Ernest Jarrold, published in Short Stories, a magazine of select fiction, Volume 5, 1891. Narrated by Conan Stewart for Tales Reawakened on YouTube.